Greetings, nursing friends. This is Professor Debbie Hill, and I wanted to go through this worksheet we did on week 1. I felt a little rushed for time since the document camera was giving me such trouble, so I really wanted to try and give you a better lesson. So I have gone through the worksheet that we looked at together and revised it some, didn't change the problems, but just tried to clarify for myself and for you. And so we're going to just start at the top and remember that milliliters is lowercase m capital L, and that if we're less than 1 milliliter, we round to the nearest hundredth, sorry, let me look at my own notes. And that is 2 decimal places. So I like this wording better than what I used on Wednesday. So to the nearest hundredth, let me make that a little neater. 2 decimal places. If it's greater than 1 milliliter, we round to the nearest tenth, and that's 1 decimal place. So then we have kilograms. We abbreviate kg, both lowercase, and pounds, lb. And we round to the nearest tenth, which again is 1 decimal place. And then milligrams, lowercase m, lowercase g, and grams, lowercase g. We round to the nearest thousandth, and that's 3 decimal places. I would probably make myself some flashcards for these because they're all different. So it would take me a little while to get them all clear. So that's a suggestion. Hopefully this part I wrote here is going to clarify. There's conflict sometimes between rounding rules and trailing zero rules. So all of the rounding rules above apply if the last digit's not a 0. If the last digit after a decimal is a 0, we leave it off. So the trailing 0 rule trumps rounding rules. So let's look at some examples. Zeros that matter versus zeros that don't. So if you have 15.0 milliliters, even though up here it says round to the nearest tenth, you don't put a trailing 0 and you write it as 15 lowercase m uppercase L with no trailing 0 or decimal. That is clearer. There's no confusion that it might be 150 milliliters because your decimal is so tiny. So we leave off those trailing zeros. If there's the rightmost digit after a decimal is a 0, we leave it off. So we would write 15.270 milliliters as 15.27 milliliters, but then we should round to 15.3 milliliters so that we're following the rounding rule. Then 187.0 pounds, we should write as 187 lb. There's no decimal and no trailing 0. And then if we have 23.56740 milligrams, we would write it as 23.5674 milligrams following the trailing zeros rule. And then we would round to the nearest thousandth, which would be 23.567 milligrams. And that's what you should report. Leading zero is a lot simpler. Always put a decimal to the left of the decimal, 0 to the left of the decimal if there's no number there. So it's like a placeholder that says a decimal place is coming. It would be so easy to miss this tiny decimal point and think it was 125 milligrams, which is 1,000 times as much. So these leading zeros are really, really, really important. Okay, then military time. Y'all seem to do really well on the military time. But let's just go ahead and fill this in so you have complete solutions. So 2 p.m. was 1400 military time. 9:45 was 21:45. 8:15 you put a 0 in the front, 0815, and then 2205 in standard time is going to be 10:05 p.m. Okay, so now let's round appropriately these examples. So I'm going to put them over here where I have more room. So number 1 should get rounded to 10.8 milliliters. It's greater than 1 milliliter, so we round to the nearest tenth of a milliliter. Number 2, we should write as 0.92, but we should add the leading 0 and round to the nearest hundredth since it's smaller than 1 milliliter. Okay, number 3, we should round, it would round up to 128.0 pounds if we rounded it to the nearest tenth, but because of the trailing 0 rule, we don't put the 0.0. Then number 4 would be 1.45 milligrams. We round to the nearest thousandth, which would be 1.450, but again, the trailing 0 rule says don't write that last 0. And number 5, we would have 260 grams, because it rounds off. If you round at all, it's going to round to 260, then it would be 0.0, but we don't want that 0.0 for confusion. We don't have the trailing zeros. Okay, so number 6, these will be pretty straightforward. 0135 is the time. 0027. Number 8 is 1600. And number 9, 1947. Okay, and then number 10 is going back the other way. So we have 12:35 a.m., 10:05 a.m., 11:59 p.m. and 5 p.m. Okay, then we have some conversion factors here, and these are in your Calculate with Confidence book, but just so we all have them here. 1,000 milliliters is 1 liter, and we use a capital L. 1,000 milligrams, mg, is 1 gram, lowercase g. Then 1,000 micrograms, mcg, is 1 milligram, mg. Okay, then 1 kilogram, kg, is 2.2 pounds. So this box is metric conversions that's just going between different metric units. The box on the right is converting from metric units to other kinds of units, household units. So 30 milliliters is 1 ounce, and we use OZ. And I cross my Z's when I handwrite for clarity. 15 milliliters is 1 tablespoon, and we put TBSP with a capital T is preferred. 5 milliliters is 1 teaspoon, TSP. And 2.5 centimeters is 1 inch. You're not going to probably do a whole lot of length measurements, although if you work in pediatrics, I'm sure you do end up measuring babies. So then this little discussion about equivalent fractions, I'm going to let you read that, but if we have an example of 230 pounds and we want to convert it to kilograms, the pounds need to be on the bottom and the kilograms need to be on the top. So it's 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds, so I'm dividing by 2.2. So I better get a smaller number when I'm dividing. So I'm going to make a second video and start here so that they're not so long. So I'm going to make a line here and make a second video and be starting right here.